I'm guessing you were there.
It was really good.
Good.
Yeah,
Great day for it. Hot.
it was very hot. We were all in this big tent wearing masks for about 2.5 hours.
Oh.
Yeah. But it was
They
worth
kept
it.
getting hotter.
But it was worth it. It was lovely to see them be able to celebrate.
Okay, so let's start with approving the agenda. I was gonna say we should add back on the survey so we can look at them for a final review. Is that okay with everybody?
Yep.
Okay. And is there anything else that anybody would like to add on for tonight? That I missed or
I mean,
did?
maybe it was just a wording and approved a approach
Yeah, I
ATV
thought so
ordinance.
too.
Maybe
Discuss.
just discuss.
I thought
Yeah,
it-
I was like,
I was just so you know, when I was driving in, I said, obviously I should have put discuss. All right, so we're going to amend that to discuss a limited approach ordinance.
you guys can
What is that?
That's the one that we talked about, Peter, with the Newport one. They did we kind of worded it a limited approach model that Bob Clavel had brought up on our first or second meeting, I think it was.
Do we have sort of paperwork?
Yeah, we handed out the Newport. There's the first one they did and then the amended one they did.
I can get you more copies if the paper copies are better for you. But they were all attached to
Right.
probably the emails from like May 4th or probably around that first.
But I
Yeah, I
have some
think that-
too, and we can make you a copy of it. Yeah, okay, yeah. Okay, any other changes on our agenda? Otherwise, we'll take it as approved.
I'll move to approve the agenda with the discussed changes.
All
Second.
right. Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. All right, public comments time. Looks like Kathy, you're our public, and Jojo. Jojo, yes, please. We'll start with you.
You just mentioned the Newport ATV ordinance. There's that. There's the maps that were handed out last week. I can't find those on the website. I would like copies of them, and I would like to see them posted on the website.
Okay, very good. We absolutely will. We're working to get those out there. And I don't know, did we put Pamela, your attachments from last meeting up? Because we could have done that too.
Yes, I need to get those to,
Didn't see them.
Yeah,
Anything that's handed out in your in-person meeting, I would look for on the website, and I would like to find them there.
okay, absolutely. We're working to do that.
Thank you.
Mhm.
That would include the flyer I gave you last week.
Yes, and we included that, the wildlife corridor flyer as well, everybody, yeah. Absolutely, Jojo. And our Pamela is diligently working to try to do that. She really is.
sometimes diligently, sometimes not so diligently.
Life happens.
Yeah, we know.
Week. Jojo, do you have an email address that I could use to just send you anything right now?
Yes, JOJOLEVASSEUR@AOL.com.
Done. Thank you.
Great.
And what, in Sandy, I don't have a current email for you. I've just got the Royalton Select one that you used to use when you were on the select board.
I still use that for this. That way, if anybody wants any of my emails, I can easily give it to them.
All right.
He's gonna be on the select board again is really what.
No, I
She's
will not.
prepared for.
No, I can tell
I
you
can
all
get it
right now, we're not.
We're gonna write you in.
Maybe when I'm 100 years old.
I write her in every time.
I'll go back. Yeah, so I just used that, Jojo, because I had used that before the town got their own, Gmail account. So that if anybody ever wanted my emails, it would be separate from my personal. So I just started using it again for this.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else, Jojo? Well, it looks like Michael Hogan's on. Michael, we're doing public comments if you have any, or Kathy, if you have any.
I don't think I have any more right now.
Okay, very good.
Is Mike speaking?
Not yet.
Oh.
You want to be recognized?
Thank you, Chair.
Yes.
I'm Kathy Hesse. I live in the village next to the library. I outed myself months ago as someone who, with singular focus on climate change, knew I couldn't get involved in the good and important work you're all doing. Thank you, because I just feel like any unnecessary miles and trying, I walked over any carbon emissions I'm opposed to, but I appreciate that you're all doing this work. And I just came to listen.
Right. Thank you. Okay, Mike, anything for you?
No, not right now. Nope.
Okay, just
Thank you, though.
listening. Yeah, just listening. And if you have any comments, absolutely raise your hand during any of our discussion.
Thank
All
you.
right, so moving on, let's go to our first agenda. Let's go, if we could, let's go make a copy of the Newport for, if we were gonna do that. So I have that right here. We could have Peter a copy. I think it's this.
Ian,
No, thank you.
Tim's got
First and second.
Anybody, and thank you, Pamela, you were able to send Jojo a copy.
Does anybody else want a copy of the Newport stuff?
Maybe give one to Kathy.
Kathy, would you like a copy of the
No,
Newport?
There, okay, all right. Okay. Mike, would you like a copy to look at?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Can you tell Pamela your email?
I have his email.
Oh, she has your email. Okay, very good. We actually, in the first part of the, when we very first began our first meeting, it was our first meeting when Ian was presenting. He showed us different models that were from like Stockbridge, Chelsea, I think it was. Forget, he can maybe say all of them that were there. And then we talked about the Newport model as something we wanted to discuss further because it was a difficult process in the city of Newport as well to create an ATV ordinance. And that town came up with the idea of doing what we had labeled in our minutes, a limited approach model. So to try to just do a small area, the ordinance would reflect a small area that was approved by that committee to do, and then have a year or two to see how well people abided by those ordinances and how well people followed the rules and the regulations to see if it could work. And so it was like a test ordinance for the town. And then they said in a couple of years, they would come back and relook at the ordinance again. And so that's also something we've talked about, is putting something in the ordinance that says that it should be looked at every year or every 2 years or something like that. So it was actually Bob Clavel that made the suggestion, a member of our team, our committee, who said, why don't we look at doing what the city of Newport did? Because they had a similar situation where, half the townspeople, at least in this last vote, wanted an ordinance and half the people didn't. And so how can we try to come up with some kind of compromise between both parties? So I just thought it might be good for us to look at it. Ian provided us with the first one that they did, and then the one in little print with parentheses is the amended one that they did like 2 years later. Looks like from the 19th to the 21st
Yeah,
of 2021.
Peter, I think the copy I just gave you unfortunately has the most recent one first, and then it's got the old copy second.
And so we're looking at the.
You're-
now, the one that's smaller type.
Correct, yeah, it's
Yeah.
4 pages in on
October
the,
21st, 2019.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
So I thought it would be something we could look at, and if you also looked in the packets that we were given in the red folders, it's very similar to the VLCT model, so I just added that in there. So if you had your packet with you, you can also look at the Vermont Leagues of Cities and Towns like template model. And so we were, if you see that it's pretty much close, the city of Newport's model is pretty much close to that template. And I think the select board gave us that because a lot of those like statutes and laws are things we can't change that are in there for ATV ordinances. So if anybody wants to have a discussion about that, I think for me is, let's just look at the models and then say, we have to figure out the model we're gonna do in the beginning of the writing. And so I just thought we should look at those two specific models.
So I compared the VLCT template to the Newport, and there was a few differences, but pretty much they followed the similar layout. I mean, it's just what they're putting in, which is what they wanted to set for rules for their location. But there was a couple things that were different in the definition. There was a difference. The weight is different in the definition on the VLCT versus the Newport. VASA they had is Vermont All-Terrain Vehicle Associations, and I think the VLCT model had Vermont ATV Sportsman Association. And there was one thing missing on the VLTC model under definition, and it was town highway or town highways means all class 1, 2, 3, and 4 town highways located within the city of Newport. But other than that, then it went on to the roads, which we wouldn't follow anyway. We have a
No.
spot for our own. And then there was just some things I highlighted that I didn't know whether, that were on the Newport of whether we wanted to add into ours or not. But it's pretty much following the same model, and they just tweaked it to with what they wanted to do with it.
So does anybody have any opposition for us using this model? I mean, some of the sections that I was saying is, I don't think we can change them anyway. They're what the statutes are.
I mean, I think as a model, it's fine,
It's
but
what we gotta
we can
do.
add things.
And then we can tweak it and do whatever we want.
Yeah.
right?
I
Yes.
think it's also worth looking at the Williamstown ordinance,
Okay,
because I know there's a few different things in there
okay.
that we may.
That
wanna
we
take a
could
look
add
at.
or something
Yeah,
in.
yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
But I mean, really, as far as the model,
I think it needs to just
it's
be
kind of
that.
set. I
Yeah.
mean,
I think for me then is just getting all of us to say that and approve that. And then was the Williamstown, I didn't see that model, but was that in the pile that you gave us that first day?
Whether it's been in the pile or I think I gave links,
Okay.
that first
Oh,
email
yeah,
that I
that
had
first
back
one.
at the beginning, because I had links to Chelsea's, I had links to Williamstown's.
Okay,
And just, openly and candidly, like, depending upon section, obviously, like one, the authority, that's pretty standard, it's gonna follow that. Two,
Right.
purpose.
yes.
You could have a little bit different wording. 3 definitions, that's pretty straightforward. Gidget hit the differences. And then like different towns I've seen do section 4 differently, one way or another. Like, so obviously this Newport one, it starts going in section 4, like boom, highways open.
Which ones they are. or
Yeah,
whatever, right?
and then I've seen it where other one, it's section 4 is actually like operation of ATVs. And it goes, so then that way, and I can't remember what town exactly so I had done a suggested model that, what the town could do one, as when we was doing some of the different presentations along the way. When we
Mhm.
were getting ready for town meeting day, I was really realizing that let's keep any of that out for now and let it just kind of be native. But long and short, in coming into the potential of section 4, you could then have different items like, right there, say, item A, all ATVs must be registered, insured, blah, blah, blah. And then basically regurgitate, 23 VSA 31, but, shortened. Again, then have another line item for a valid, VASA TAD would be required, front and rear, pretty much, just to really enforce that. In item C, you could do like helmets are required. Because I know there's parts of this that they do touch, and then there's parts of it they don't touch, and then this kind of, it blends it in and out with section 5, but other towns I've seen then go into saying like, okay, these are the highways we're gonna list in that same section, 4, because it's still under the operation of ATVs, and then it's defining where the operation is legal. And then a bunch of other stuff where you could have an item, then say E for, just to make it clear, ATVs shall not be operated on vast snowmobile trails unless property owner is signed a VASA landowner permission form, such so that way that there's,
Okay.
complete clarity that, because a lot of people think, oh, well, it's a snowmobile trail, so I must be able to run my ATV on it. And that's like, the absolute number one misnomer is that, you can't assume that.
Well, I think you're kind of getting into the weeds. I
Okay,
think for
sorry.
me, what I'd like to do is say, is everybody okay if we vote on beginning the template as the VLCT model ordinance, and then we'll work on the sections as we go through in the details when we start to write it?
Sorry.
No, that's all right.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, generally following the sections, I mean, it's, you might piece and parse. but
Where you
yeah,
could
it's all-
add a section that there's something in Williamstown that we like, that we think would fit better for us, something in the Newport model that would fit better in there for us.
So there had been some discussion about, like the duration of the ordinance.
Yes,
whether or
that's right.
not
I
it
think
would
that
be
should be
a
in there.
yearly thing.
Yep, yep.
So I don't know if, I don't see anything like that in the Newport ordinance.
But we can add that section.
Okay, I didn't know if that needed its own section. or
Yeah.
If that was a major change to.
I would think that just goes under the general section of operation of ATVs,
Yeah.
because you're in that section, you're defining what is okay for operation. And just because I've got it right here, from what I'd gathered from the select board as well, is yearly review of this ordinance to take place at the first select board meeting in January after adoption. Yearly review shall include town permission waiver to maintain town as additional insured under VASA policy.
So I think it's
That's what we
perfect.
had.
And those are all the different
gotten.
things I think because I think a lot of us agree to that, because that's why we're looking at having that discussion about a limited approach, and that limited approach then would be reviewed either annually or however it falls of when they need to do it for the select board, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
And then just to answer, with just one more thing without getting too much in the weeds, it was just
Mhm.
one other part that other towns have had is in that operation language. I think this actually came from Williamstown, and I might have ad-libbed just a little bit from it, but there was another one that was affected property owner shall have the right to petition the town to add or remove from usage that portion of any highway or town addition or removal shall be at the discretion of the select board by a decision made at a regular meeting, and if granted, shall take effect immediately.
Oh.
Thereafter, the club may submit alternatives to the disqualified section.
so that's also good to be in there, so that if you find, like, say Chief Loretta's, like, they're not following the road, on Happy Hollow or whatever, right? I'd like to petition the select board to take that road out because they're not doing or something. They'd have the power to be able to do that.
And I mean, and this is just to add language to make it, give clarity. I mean, the select board, at any time, they could approve an ordinance if they had whatever they wanted in writing, and they can slash it at any time if they, want. I mean, but this is just to reinforce that, yes, it shall be reviewed yearly, and, affected property owners should be able to petition.
Yeah. So I think if we could just say, for me, I just think if we put in that we are gonna, basically follow the template of the VLCT model ordinance with our added nuances, right? Or something like that, just is something that we have like down that the committee all agreed on to do.
I'll make
Yeah.
a motion to follow the VLTC model and adding our changes to it as necessary compared to how we're reviewing the other ordinance we've reviewed.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion made and seconded. Any other discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, looks like the motion passes. Okay, so moving on, that's what I put this in there to discuss then, which we kind of were doing a little bit here, is the limited approach idea was the idea of doing a ordinance for a short amount of time. And that start off and also to look at doing just a particular area instead of an ordinance that had originally been proposed for all of the different areas. So we just approved, Dave just came in, we just approved just utilizing the ordinance from VLCT as a guide for us.
Sounds good.
That's all we've really done so far. And now we're just having the discussion about this limited approach model of saying just doing a section of the ordinance than it was maybe proposed or talked about at town meeting.
Right, yeah, so at town meeting, the map was discussed of like three
Different
three
areas.
different areas. And just seeing that, we're not quite there with Tunbridge yet. We've actually got some work, we're starting to make some progress. We're gonna put some things together and get working with Tunbridge, but in the interest of getting something that works for now, that's limited. Hopefully, it, as a trial that can show that, this can be successful, was the asking for area one being the spur to get to Barnard and then a spur to get to the backside of the village of
Yes.
Royalton.
So
South
that's
Royalton.
what we're gonna look at. We're gonna talk about those specific roads next, but I think it would be important. It seemed like the committee was okay for that. A lot of us shook our heads, but I want to be sure that
But the committee was okay with what? I'm sorry.
it's okay with,
Well, I mean, so let's just say like the general corridors. I know, and like we can start getting the weeds of, exact from intersection to intersection, property to property. But the idea is that we're generally would like to try to get from a property that's, said that they could be a trailhead. I know there's a lot of hurdles. We have some signatures we can get. We've got a lot of verbal approvals on these properties that make the connections. That's one of the differences with, sometimes with these towns, when they open up town roads, they're making the connections, where what we're doing and trying to show it is really being limited. There could be, some shortcomings where, all of a sudden you lose, say, a property owner permission, then we have a dead end, a spur that doesn't necessarily connect, or, so I mean, really, when it comes down to this, like a pure town road, if it's the spur that uses, even though actually it's gonna be private properties to get us from, say, Lyman's Tow Garage in Royalton Village to Bridge Street, to Automera Road, to Oxbow, to Rainbow Street or Pleasant. I can't remember where the exact splits are there, but anyways, like that would be like one spur that is almost solely, town roads, and then we could discuss that. And I know if I say that one first, it's easier to talk about. Then the next one is the other spur that was discussed of, Gee Hill, using some private properties. Do we try to use Route 14? I think that we've got a plan to try to meet with one of the other landowners that's along Route 14 there that we talked about. I'm trying to get off Route 14, but it's one of those things that we go back and forth on, is do we just ask for it or not ask for it? I still haven't gotten a comment back from V-Trans. I have not pestered them lately though. And then of course we got to talk about getting up through Seawall Brook Road and.
So can I ask a question about the access to Barnard? Brad put together, he went and looked up the roads in Barnard that are open to traffic, and none of them come up to the line where they can be accessed by any Royalton roads.
Correct.
So I guess in discovering that, I'm a little confused as to as to why the urgency for area of interest. Is that one?
Yep.
Because it doesn't connect to Barnard, right?
We met with the Barn, so myself and Tim's son met with the Barnard Select Board in September last year. And at that time, we had actually, going into this kind of blind and trying to stay away from this northwest area of Royalton. Because at that time, we didn't have a clear connection to Royalton Hill, when we didn't want to use River Road because the horse riding. So we were thinking we could get to East Barnard and then meander through the woods of East Barnard, somewhere across Lakota Road, and then get up into Chattagee via Lakota Road was our original proposal. And Barnard Select Board said, no way, that's way too much exposure. But I'll tell you what, we've already thought about it and looked at it. And if you guys could get to Rhodes Hill, Russo Road, you come down Rhodes Hill to Route 12.
Mhm.
There's a very short section of Route 12, you hit Masterson Road, and I could,
No, I know what you're
Actually,
talking about, yeah.
and so then if you get to Masterson Road, you get to Old Mount Hunger. And then from Old Mount Hunger, you get to the intersection with Davis Hill, Smith Hill, West Hill. I don't know, there's that four-way intersection, or maybe it's Morgan Hill. Anyway, you get to
Yes, Smith first.
Smith, Davis.
And you're right, it's Morgan Corners.
Okay, thank you, Jojo. So that's what they pointed us to go to that, and that would be the better route. And basically, what they said to us was, if you can get to Russo Road, we'll give you permission to get onto the system from. So, I mean, I could bring up the minutes where they said that they.
No, that's.
Well, that's what we were wondering. So then, as far as the limited access, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page, that the roads that are colored in for your proposal, Ian, that those, we are not just limited to those, right, for access to Russo. There's also Johnson Hill, there's Davis, or sorry, Burlington Hill, Davis, there are other roads. It
Yep.
doesn't, so we shouldn't think that we are limited to just the
No.
ones that are on the proposal,
Right.
right?
No, and I just think I want to clarify maybe that I'm not doing well is I think for me, it's like the 40,000 mile view, which is just saying that we're looking at a limited approach of how we're going to create the ordinance, right? So just for an area that hasn't yet been decided, that we're still talking about the roadways and where it's going to be, but that instead of doing like all three areas, we're saying, we're going to say it's going to be one area of interest, and these are going to be those roads, as opposed to looking at the whole thing.
So what area?
Well, I think we're going to determine what the limit that
Well,
area is.
I'm not talking like a specific area, but I think that, I mean, when we're talking a limited approach, accessing the private trail networks that you're working on is the most important part.
Yeah.
I mean, that's because that's what we're trying to do here, right?
Or the private.
We want to get to the point where we're not primarily using town roads,
Mhm.
and we're using little sections of town
To
roads
cross over.
to cross over to private trail networks.
Yes.
So I think it would be kind of smart to sort of concentrate on those areas where you have some landowner permissions right now,
Mhm.
and maybe some more possible future areas. I just think that would be one thing to take
Yeah.
into.
But I'm not trying to say that we're picking out the roads. For me, is I'm trying, like Jojo kind of mentioned it at the last meeting, like she was like, Sandy, I just want to say, like, I'm not for that we do the whole ordinance. And the idea was, we're not looking at what was originally proposed to the town in the voting. We're looking at condensing that to a smaller test site, like basically.
But it could be other roads.
It absolutely
Right?
could
Okay,
be
got
other
it.
roads. It's not just saying it's those roads that are identified in his map from area of
Got
interest
it.
1, 2, or 3.
But we rely on Ian because he's been talking with the landowners to
And
know
knows who
what's
they
open,
are.
to know where.
Yeah,
And with one point, so we've talked to, so say for instance, like, just trying to work through some things that we're trying to make sense, with Seawall Brook Road. So the Mastines, they've already said that they would give permission to come from their property over. I have not directly spoken with Kit and Chris McCullough yet, but from what everybody's told me, that they've talked to them, that they're generally on board for us to connect there. I believe there's a new owner of whatever the Bassett property is, it's in the middle. So then it's just a matter of, if we could get permission, tie the permission of those three owners together, that gets us through the woods from Seawall Brook Road, avoids North Road, and gets us back on Davis Road kind of running parallel to North Road up there. So we have got some initial, we've got some traction going with that. Then our next person that I was gonna try to connect with is, we were doing some map research the other night, and it looks like as soon as you start heading up Davis Road, there's a pretty good chunk of road frontage that, Bonnie Van Fossen has, and this is just from looking at tax maps, that there's a pretty good chunk of road frontage she has that's just in woods, away from homes, that if it's potential, we could skirt around her property, because the other one that's important up there is the McCulloughs. And that they've said whatever that we needed to do, we could, put trails wherever and work with them on that. And so the Bonnie Van Fossen property abuts McCulloughs above, say, the Smith property on Seawall Brook Road. So that could be an alternate to go just a short distance up Davis Road, but then come back down through the woods to the Class 4 portion of Seawall Brook. There's a big ravine up there on the southwest of the Smith property, so it's key to get, there's a little window in all these abutting. This is just from doing some tax map research and trying to be, careful and selective, but
Yeah, I'm familiar with that ravine. That's also our property line on the backside there. Rogers,
actually,
is that part of what you're?
So I haven't studied so much. They were mentioned. So we talked about that if you came off Waldo Road. We did talk about, options of trying to come off Waldo Road to get onto other McCullough property and try to come up around, but everybody initially said, oh, there's no way, it's wicked swampy through there. But it is definitely
there are a lot of
something,
wetlands, yeah.
it is definitely something that we would walk and see if there is maybe some narrow corridor through there, but,
there's only one house on Waldo, so I think reaching out to the people that live there would be the first
Yeah.
thing you should.
I just haven't.
Well, do you guys want to just move into the maps and areas of interest? Because that's really what we're talking about now.
Or is he
Yeah,
ready?
I think
Has he got
we all
enough
agree
permission
that
where we-
Like, we all agree
a limited
If I can
approach.
share my screen.
That's what
I
I'm
don't have it
saying.
printed,
But
if
some
I can
of
share my
what,
screen, okay.
some of what is limiting the
Yes.
approach is the fact that they're having trouble getting up into Tunbridge. So that's.
Well, we're not even talking about that area though for right now, right? I thought we
Yeah,
kind
we
of took,
wiped it off.
we totally took that off the table because we currently don't have access to that trail. So that was the first one for us to take off the table.
And
I
there
feel
is a
like-
lot of mileage there, and there is, a bigger chunk of Route 110, and it has the same issues with sight distance and everything else that the concerns for Royalton Hill intersection have.
Yeah.
Have you
But
thought
if-
about- Oh, go ahead.
Because we haven't sat down and talked to the Tatrots yet. I've had a couple verbal conversations with Lenny. We need to sit down and have some conversations and walk their property together. And I have zero bearings on whether they would even be amenable to something where we came down their property to hit the driveway for where, say, Lucky's Atlantic plywood is. So you could do a perpendicular crossing in the Atlantic plywood, but I said this before, then we need to get permission from the town to have a trail either across the pocket park. I don't think Rodney Rainville is gonna be on board with us coming across his land to hit the Snowmobile Trail right now, where it crosses next to where, I don't know who lives there, Charlie Welch's old house. I don't think Rodney's not on board with us coming down in the field. But the only thing that I guess, now that I honestly just haven't even thought about it, like to avoid the Royalton Hill intersection, if we did come down, the old Eden Sugar House site, and if the people the only thing is if we use that Snowmobile Trail to get down below, I don't think that does come back to the Fox Stand parking lot, doesn't it?
Not really.
Not anymore. Well, how's the Snowmobile Trail get to the Fox Stand Bridge?
It does because it follows the railroad track right there.
It comes down back of Rainville's.
Right, no, but once you cross Route 14,
Yeah.
because the snowmobile goes across the snowmobile bridge,
Yeah.
but but that's to go back towards 107. How do they get back to?
It follows that ravine behind.
Doesn't it come back? Don't snowmobiles cross the bridge on the Fox Dam Bridge?
Yeah,
Like
I think it pops out behind.
No,
It's right behind Welch's and goes right out behind the Fox Stand,
Right.
the old Fox Stand.
Yeah, Roma's.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then connects right by the
I mean,
rail crossing.
I guess I haven't thought of that yet. I didn't think of, yeah, maybe we could just come down Route 14 a short stretch if they would be okay with us using what that snowmobile corridor is to get to the Fox Dam Bridge.
So were you gonna make a map that actually showed as much of the private trails that you've been working on?
Can I share my screen for my laptop?
So I don't think you can. I asked
Victoria?
yes, if we could do that from our own, and she said, no, we're locked out.
Oh.
But if you go onto the town's computer,
Which is really slow.
No, it was really slow last week when I tried to bring up a web page at the same time. That's why I
yeah, I asked her about
hotspotted and
that, and she said, I think
Maybe we
Oh,
could
okay.
move the owl in front of it, and as long as you talk, it will show your screen. I don't know, but the pictures.
That's not a bad idea.
so yeah, those snapshots I shared the other night,
Mhm.
without trying to,
Oh,
No.
Mike, you have your hand up?
Whoops. I don't know what I just hit, but the lights are still on.
I did, actually.
Yes, go right ahead.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get clear in my mind in talking about this limiting principle, what you really describe as like a pilot program to, but it's unclear to me is what section of the town are you going to focus on for the pilot? I think you need to identify whether you just, divide it in quarters and deal with one quarter but it's unclear. It's jumping all around, and you're not going to make any progress until you. The pilot idea is a fair idea, but I think you need to settle on what's going to be the pilot zone. You could call it a zone, you could call it anything you wanted, but right now it's hard to follow you, and I apologize for that. But
Oh, no, we totally agree. And that's why we were needing the visuals of the map. So that's why I think it's good for us to kind of move into that section of where we're looking at so people can understand. And I think what we were saying and what Brad was also trying to point out is we're also trying to look to see where we have the most private lands that have been approved to let us go on to begin it. And I think could be the best compromise we can come up with in the beginning. So, right. So we're getting to the maps. That's what I was saying. I think it's good. Like, I think as a committee, we were all saying, we all agree that doing this limited approach is the best way to do it. Now, where are those areas we're talking about? So why don't you go ahead, Ian, and start? Because that's the next part.
how about the
Yeah.
map handout? There's a map handout that I just Pamela emailed me that shows, the colored the roads.
Yeah, I love that one myself.
It's easy enough to follow.
Yes, it's very easy to follow. So, but Ian has some maps, but he knows
It's-
the private land.
it's actually very,
much.
very much what Pamela
with.
highlighted is, so what I would do is, I try to describe it as like from our base point, our origin, where we have initial, indication that a private landowner would give us a trailhead so it's Lyman's Tow Garage, which is, it's across from the Gee Hill intersection of Route 14 in, when you first get into Royalton Village after the Sharp Bridge by Welch's.
Adjacent to the town garage.
Yeah, it's right.
Yeah.
It's next to the town garage.
That's right.
So that's kind of like, so in describing this as our base point is, that's where we've gotten an indication that we could have a trailhead. We could come out of there and do a 90-degree or nearly 90-degree crossing into the, I guess it's either the mouth of Gee Hill Road and the combined sand stockpile that the area that the town has. And then go up Gee Hill. And then the Gee Hill is we're in the process of trying to iron out the exact entry into private land from Gee Hill is either going to be There's a narrow point where Rodney Rainville's property hits Gee Hill, or there's a part of Gee Hill that Jim Good's property hits Gee Hill. And
Could I just interrupt there? And looking at the map, there's this yellow map, and that's mostly Jim Good's property, if not all of it. And at the last meeting, I think it was the last meeting, but you mentioned that there would be no entrances onto Russ Hill. And if you look at that yellow line, it goes right over to Russ Hill. And coincidentally, I know this is not perfectly accurate, but I would say it would exit right in front of my house. And so I don't understand. And also there's a huge, there was just a new snowmobile entrance put on up Russ Hill, maybe 150 yards north of me. And I don't know whether that's going to be it or not, but that is very close to my home. And already there are not snowmobiles, ATVs using that area. And when I was complaining about the noise, that's now obviously the source of the noise. So, there was a promise that there would be no entrances onto Russ Hill Road.
And I apologize that with, just what Pamela was doing with the other maps. So she was copying what at one time we had, but as of right now, no. And if you could see the map that I have here on my screen, there is no entry to Russ Hill. It's solely Gee Hill to try to get down to Route 14.
Okay. So that yellow line that sort of juts over towards Russ Hill isn't real.
No, we will not be sharing that. And the only thing that I would say, there's a couple parts with this is that, and I'm not, no, we're not, whatever we show on paper as the VASA map, that's what we're showing as that is what's going to be signed for access by club members that are under sanctioned rides.
How do we get the VASA map? Is that something that's already done, or
we're not. Once the ordinance is developed, then that's what we will share with VASA, because we can't, if we just shared this with VASA, once VASA publishes it, then it's open. So that would not be handed off until, once we have a bona fide, fully clear ordinance.
Well, keep my circumstance in mind, believe me.
Well, and certainly will. I mean, we want to be sympathetic to everybody that is concerned.
So did I understand that what Mike was saying was that at some presentation, would this be back in February, that you promised there would be no access to Russ Hill?
Oh, just a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
There is no Russ Hill access.
And I'm just curious, why not?
We had two members that were over there, but we've talked to them, and generally the idea would be is like they either a trailer, and I'm sure that like we're battling this, and with our guys is that, when we're trying to do this, it's we're going to be well behaved. We're going to do what we say we're going to do. And if our point of access is going to be from a driven point or from a trailered point, that's what we're going to have to do. The only thing that is separate from all this that I can't stop is that, say Chase Locke lives in that cabin over there. I know Chase Locke already has a Ranger, he's buying another Commander, and he's buying something else that he has a trail that he could leave his log cabin from. Chase Locke's the kid that does all the sugaring for Jim Good. And so it's on Jim Good property. His cabin's on Jim Good property. Anyways, from his cabin, he could park and fire his Ranger Razor up right there. And he does right now.
Is the short answer just that there were property owners up there that were against it, and so that became like a point of least resistance was to just stay away from that?
And Russ Hill didn't really benefit us other than getting access for those couple members. And, again, in the trial instance where we're just trying to get, only showing what we're sharing to VASA. If somewhere down the road, similar to Newport, when they had a lot of complaints saying, hey, all of us residents, we live within a quarter mile of the trail. Can we get on? Which we don't want to open up that discussion now. It's just let us get whatever the VASA corridor is going to be. if everybody can have good behavior, then maybe in a year or so, we can revisit residential access written into the ordinance separate from the general access
I
given to
think
the
I saw
club.
that in someone's ordinance where it was sort of like, once they had this established trail network that seemed to be working, then they sort of added something where residents of the town could access the trail system via the shortest route
Distance.
possible.
And to be clear, it's for residents only. It's not, hey, let's have a party at my house and have 40 people pile in my field and ride from here just because I happen to live on the
Yeah.
system. And that might be something that's worth, we could condition that into our ordinance that, that should maybe potentially not be a accepted practice or something. I don't know how
I
you.
think that's way in the future.
Yeah, that's what
before
I
we
say,
would ever
like,
get to
that's
anything. I mean,
phase 20.
I think we can discuss
We
things
won't be
that
there.
other people are doing.
I see you, Jojo.
But I don't think that
Yeah.
sort of access is something that we need to focus on.
No,
initially.
no.
I just want to make sure that we're clear in thinking about it. That's-
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Jojo, you have your hand raised.
Thank you, Sandy. Mike just said that he could see the map that was emailed to him, but I got to tell you, admit that I don't know how to bring up my email while I'm on Zoom. I'm sorry, but Ian, could you put your screen on instead of your face? Can you move your screen over so I can see a little bit of that?
Oh, that's what we were trying to do with how about this?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not really gonna.
Yeah, I don't.
Oh, it's very blurry.
And you can't share through Zoom.
And we can't, that's what we were just talking about is I can't share through Zoom and the town computer's really slow.
Can you
Well,
send it to
They
Pamela?
block it where you
it's
can't
totally
share?
blurry, but oh well.
But you know what, I am on the Zoom, you know what I could do is, let me see if I can just do a screenshot of what I've got here. And
Oh, sort of
I could share it to the
PowerPoint?
chat. Leah, let me just see if I can share it to the chat.
I sent it on email.
Yeah, right?
The ones that this is what I emailed
No,
on
I-
Saturday.
I can send that too, but I think she's saying that she can't open
Oh, she
up
can't open her
email while
email.
she's on-
No, how?
I just think it's odd that he can't share his screen, that the town has it blocked. I could see some permission thing where they have to allow someone in, but.
I don't know.
I don't know how to do my email while I'm on Zoom either, so.
Give me just one
Apologize.
sec, Jojo. I'm in the middle of, let me see if because I'm also on the Zoom with my.
Yeah, because if you have, I really like Pamela's map. I use it all the time. Well, just because it's color coded for me and it gives me a better visual of everything of where we're looking at, right?
Except now, I guess I should take off that.
That little
Part that
yellow
goes up
part,
to-
but
yeah.
I'm just making a notation on your map for that, right?
I'll just have to see it when we're done.
Okay, yeah. And then look at Pamela's map too, because I like it, it's color coded, has the legend, and it's pretty similar, as Ian is saying, to, if you could get in, you could see that one that she did, but.
Well, I'll be able to see the email once I'm off of this, I know, so thank you.
Right. Yeah, right, Jojo.
All right.
Okay. All right, so you want to keep going?
I'm sorry.
Oh, you're trying to get that on.
I'm about to put it in the chat.
Okay.
Yep, that won't work either. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be negative. I've been trying to do this over the
And
last
they
few
won't do
weeks.
it.
It will only share with the town, with the town's account. If
Oh,
you try to
really?
chat it,
Well,
yeah,
I saw when you posted files.
I did it from there.
Oh.
Do you have a thumb drive?
Fuck.
That would still mean you'd be uploading to that computer and trying to send it that way, right?
Yeah, I have a thumb drive in the truck.
Well, anyway,
You
I
can
mean,
share.
yeah.
We'll remember that for next time. though.
Yeah. So I guess kind of like stepping back a little bit, I'm wondering, who's the target audience, or who is it that would be benefiting ATV wise, or, rider wise from this? Like, who's the goal to serve? Is it local is it residents who want to ride on trails around here and have access to some of the roads so that they can connect to those trails? And if so, then the Lyman's trailhead there, and, just saying like that, then I could see that as being a way to access as private trails using some roads. Not saying that it has to be that one, but that's one possibility. The other is that the goal is to open up access to other counties or to other towns rather. And if that's the case, that's kind of like a different mission, right? And you would have a different map because of it.
Well, I think what we open up would go to any member of the VASA club, right?
Well,
And yeah, that's the tough thing is, and again, we did debate on, do we just become a private club at one time? And
oh yeah,
then,
no, I don't mean to, I'm sorry, I beg your pardon, but I'm like, say, would still be, you could still bring your trailer to the trailhead, to Lyman's, and you could
Oh,
use
yeah.
those, they'd be part of VASA, but
Yeah.
but just as far as the connectivity goes, is the goal to get to other towns, or is the goal to have a limited test site that uses as much private property as possible with access to some of the roads as necessary? So that if you're here in South Burlington and you want to park at the trailhead and do that, then, is that the goal?
so
As a test?
yeah, I hear what you're saying. And I mean, in just thinking about that conceptually, what basically that would do is, I mean, we have, whether it's Rodney Rainville's and Jim Goods, both on the, call it west side of Gee Hill, and then Jim Hudson also had indicated that he would open up some of his trails on, which is like the east side of Gee Hill, up in that same area of Gee Hill. But I haven't really been talking about Jim Hudson's as much because we were kind of using that as like the start of what the Tunbridge spur is. Because then it's like, from there, that's how we were going to get through the woods from his, through Wally Clark's, through Booney Cairns, down, anyway, so that was more that to get us up Gee Hill, that's like the essential piece. So I guess if to answer your question, just to get us to private land.
Mhm.
And then, yes, then unfortunately there is there's the chunks of Royalton Hills, Sewell Brook Road or Davis Road or whatever to get to the next chunks of potential private land. So that's,
But those aren't established yet, right?
No,
Those are that's just
yeah, just initial
ideas,
ideas, yes,
Okay.
Verbal permission from the landowners.
right.
but not a connected trail. that
But those-
exists,
There's
right?
no,
those
there's
aren't
no
really
trails
trail
made yet,
networks.
because through experience of building snow machine trails,
Mhm.
we got landowner permission, and then there was one landowner right in the middle that everybody said he'd give permission, but he never did.
Right,
So now you've got point A and point B, but you can't connect.
yeah, no, hey,
So
I'm telling you,
this
I
is
know,
what-
I think you've got a tough road to climb.
Well,
here.
this is all what Ian and the whole club is trying to, and Dave can vouch. You've got to get your landowner permission, and that's where the town roads come in, because you gotta be able to make a connection. And with just a little bit of this road, and a little bit of this road, and the landowners, the graceful landowners that will give you,
Right.
because not everyone's going to.
No, sure, I believe that.
And that's where,
But if you don't have, like, for sure, the signed consent for the trails where people are amenable to it, right? Then you don't know what portions of road that you need to connect those trails.
We've got
There's a
verbal, we've got verbal.
So, well, can you make a
list?
map for us that shows those things?
Yeah.
Because to me, that seems critical to any kind of discussion about a limited,
And that's why I went back to with the map that I was working on, and I shared it in a couple different variations there. So like in CAD, in GIS, what I'm able to do, took a lot of the similar colors, and right now it's on the ortho background. So if we want just roads in the background. So if you can see from there, black outline is Royalton.
Mhm.
All of these gray lines this is the town tax map I was able to put in relation.
is it gonna come up on the screen?
It-
That computer's really slow.
It won't even open a picture
All right.
but
separate
the
from.
colors, but I'm still just looking at the public roads.
Okay, so from where you are, like,
Aside from the green.
so like, if I zoomed way in, so the other benefit with this is if I zoom in, this would be like, say, our trailhead.
Right?
So with this, I can zoom right in on any part that anybody wants
That's
to.
yellow on,
The
on
yellow,
my little map.
this goldenrod here, box would be our trailhead, leaving out of there, crossing Gee Hill. So then I was using this purple line as the Gee Hill. I don't know what, oh, you had yellow. I used green for private lands. So this would be green here to get from, purple of Gee Hill down to, Route 14. And then what I did sections, and I didn't know if I was trying to be smart with it or know what people were going to ask. I was doing, so blue is like paved sections, because I know a lot of people want to like talk about class 2s, class 3s. It's like, to me, it really seemed to me more like, all right, let's talk about a paved section. So, and I can change any of the colors on this just to make it whatever.
It's okay.
So when I was drawing it the other night, and then plus, if I need to
Okay,
split different stuff up, but, so you're the blue to there where it goes dirt.
but those are all roads. None of that's private land.
This is, so only the green
Right,
is private, in the way that I've got it colored here.
right. Okay, good.
But
So I'm right in seeing that.
What I could do, and to answer your question, is so as we start doing this, if now that we know, okay, hey, we've got permission to have private trails verbally,
Oh, just not written.
yeah, well, when we just haven't exactly ironed it out yet.
Mhm.
So we've
Oh, wow.
got verbal, that's not, what I meant to do with that one. Because, I don't know, actually, so it'd be, no, because see, that grabs all of, whoever, darn it. So plus or minus just that little connection there. I mean, we've got verbal, when you get verbal permission from all of Jim Goods, Rodney Rainville's, and then if we get permission from, let's hope it grabs this right. No. And that would be Tatros land. So that would, like, we have verbal permission literally for all of this land somewhere here. So this green land this green line is where we've are already traced we've already gone up and wrote it. Or if I bring this here, and I can actually show you in, you can see when you really zoom in on this, you can see all of their existing trails that they have on their properties.
Oh, already there.
Yeah, so these are trails that are there.
Is that you?
And then what I should have done is I should have done, like, I was starting to do certain stuff in.
I got all kinds of trails behind my house, my grandson hikes.
So why?
Possible private. So we weren't sure, so, because Rodney Rainville has said that we could do something on his land, but we just weren't sure where exactly, because he was talking about, he wants the Snowmobile Trail to move anyways on his property, because he's planning on doing some sort of subdivision activity up here. So that's why, like, this right here, I'm just showing in yellow right now is, it's could go one way or the other, and then depending on how exactly we want to come off
Back road, not all their traffic.
goods, but basically,
Everybody.
we're, kind of getting away from the town highway discussion, other than that we know that we have a connection point somewhere in this half-mile stretch to get down to this point here. It's just a matter of which way it goes, whether it's on Jim Goods or it's on Rodney Rainville's, it's there.
Do you normally find that, like, snowmobile trails are adverse to having ATV be part of the parts?
Some of it up north, yeah. I mean, a lot of it is shared. And then if you go up, it's funny because you go to Pittsburgh and whatnot in New Hampshire, and they'll give you a map, and you would think that you can go anywhere. And that's the snow machine trail. No, you're not allowed there, but you can use this one.
Oh, yeah.
And then you go a little bit further and you can use this one, but you can't use this one.
Well, there's certain.
So it's.
So most
it's
likely
give
it
and
probably
take.
depends on the landowner, whether they will let both.
And what the use of their land is. I mean,
Yeah.
you could run across a random pasture in the middle of it that's fenced that in the winter, maybe they take the fence down, or you could snowmobile through wherever the gate is and they don't have critters there.
Yeah.
But in the summer, they're gonna have critters there and or their hay fields that they wouldn't necessarily want us driving through.
Yeah.
But there's tons of places like when we're up in, I don't know what I'm saying, not Sheffield, but, there's, where's, what's the town with all the big cornfields? That's not,
Harrisburg.
Irisburg. There's tons of, there's huge, cornfields that we just skirt all these huge cornfields in Irisburg when we ride. But so, cause they were able to work it out with the landowner and worked with them on a couple bridge water crossings here and there and, yeah, anyway, so, Pamela, I might have lost you for just one sec
That's
there.
okay. I think I'm still with
So-
you.
so,
I'm looking
but
at the map
what-
that you sent.
When you're asking about like, if we were to highlight, like say this is in between Gee Hill Road.
Yeah.
And Route 14. So all these that are highlighted right now in the blue,
Mhm.
those are all ones that we have verbal permission on, and it's just a matter of how we get, different stuff through. And that's why I was showing it in the green as the potential. These little yellow ones, we need to talk through with the landowners to make sure exactly where they want us. There's already, in this green follows existing trails that are already out there.
So why isn't that the limited area that we consider going with?
And that's where I guess I was saying is understanding that would be the limit of, we're just riding Gee Hill from Route 14 to whatever that point is and I understand that because this is where our group of private lands are, is between that one and when I say Jim Hudson's, he is this one. So it gets you to this corridor, but you're talking about it's,
Yeah.
I don't even.
Yeah,
actually,
so
I do
wait,
know.
but for me
You're-
is, why aren't we trying to connect to Barnard since they say that they want us to? I mean, or they say that we can.
And I guess this is just looking at it as like, so that purple line right there is 8,900 feet long. That would be saying that we're going and, obviously anything we can get, we're gonna be grateful for, but it'd be like, this is a lot of work to get 8,900 feet and only get to go from a trailhead to the one group of private lands. It was really the hope of trying to get to Barnard. And if that's what we want to focus on is, forget the other spur that gets to the village. If it's just the Barnard one, if that was the consensus of this group, I guess we would want to hear that. But then we got a lot of grief from some folks that it's like, okay, well now whatever short of people trailering and going to businesses. I mean, that was our hope, was to get to the backside of South Royalton Village with that other spur. But I understand what you're saying in limitation.
That was a pretty big stretch.
In limiting that, to get us from a trailhead to private lands, that would be it. That would be, you do that 8,900 feet of road and that would get you to private lands. It doesn't really, it's a lot of, it's a lot of work for a little,
For a small area.
yeah.
I hear that, but the problem is, you're still looking at pretty much the whole, Merrill, Royalton Hills, Swool Brook part of it. Like, this is not limited. This is actually the whole everything that's left after we took off the Tunbridge area of interest.
So
We
I-
haven't started talking about that yet, so he's given us this area going towards Barnard, and we'll talk about the wildlife corridor and the southeastern part of town next, I assume.
Yeah, I would love to talk to you. We can talk more about it. I guess in the one interest of, I haven't done the percentage. When we had the Tunbridge spur in it, we were talking about, and I gotta go back to my exact numbers. I think it was 16% of the town's roads. And just trying to always put it in perspective of, it feels like a big area, it sounds like a big area, but then at the same point, it's 16% of the town roads. And one of the next things I was
Pretty
gonna,
significant. 16%, I think. But go
There's
ahead.
quite a lot of back road in Royalton.
But
It's
compared to
also
100%,
misleading, you're thinking the road is
mean-
all super flat, whereas some of them are really very different, so you can't just say.
If I might say something? Can I
Sure.
just Yeah, just quickly, the whole thrust of the program, when it was being generated leading up to the vote, was that this was the idea was to create this interconnected system between towns. And my own view, it may be self-interest, but that's what you want. That's how this was sold to the people who did vote for it. That it was going to be a program that was going to be interconnected to the town. The partial up like Gee Hill Road, which you've alluded to, doesn't go anywhere. It's just essentially becomes a big track. It's like, you go up Gee Hill Road, you go across Jim Good's property, go to 14, and just go around in circles. That really wasn't the premise of this whole thing. I thought the idea. So if you're going to have a pilot, I think you ought to focus on areas that will ultimately connect to something.
Agreed, Mike, and that's exactly what I was saying is like,
Yeah.
at that point, yeah, you wouldn't, I mean, obviously we'd be gracious for anything, like I said, but it really doesn't, just getting up Gee Hill doesn't, get you, yes, it gets you to private lands, but it doesn't get us back to what our mission was.
And
Thank
I
you.
think too that we should, it's our test run to try to, since we already know that you can get permission for Barnard, that would be our test run to get to a town. And I agree, I think that people voted on it thinking, eventually you'd be able to create these trails that get you to other towns. And I agree with that.
Okay, so that's the goal. That's what I was asking earlier.
Yes, I
Is
think the goal is let's try to
to
get to
serve
Barnard.
Well,
the whole vast system.
the corridor, yeah,
Sure.
So we got to move on to our next agenda item, but is there another, so for the map, does anybody need any clarification? I feel like the map's the key on how we're going to explain it to people.
But I don't think too, as they're still working for permissions and stuff, that we could be focusing on the rest of the ordinance and actually work on what portions.
so
Once Ian's gotten some more information.
now that we're past the survey mode, I got that done. I can now in my spare time, I can put in this and what, we can do is have zoom ins now now I've got this overlaid with the tax maps is, I can do a zoom in at a, 1 inch equals 1,000 scale and really have nice snapshots of the whole corridor through, with tax maps or aerial background or whichever we're looking for, while still having the big picture, but, and we'll work on getting our verbals into signatures for the purpose of.
But I do think that as we move forward, alternate routes to what you're proposing need to be discussed with as much time as Ian's proposed routes, because there are many ways to get to Barnard from here, and that the ATV club's desired route may not be what makes sense.
But so what's an alternate?
So, yeah, I think Brad, you were bringing up.
We're gonna be opening up more roads then. For an alternate route. You're asking to vote on more roads.
Well, sure.
Yeah,
I mean,
some of these back roads, I think if you came, I hate to throw this at you right here.
Yeah, no, I like it.
When you come over the Autumn Railroad, if you get on to Johnson Hill, take Johnson Hill.
While this is going on, can I do that?
Absolutely, I was going to bring it up. If I did interrupt.
No, it's on.
Okay, let me heat up.
Do you mind repeating that? when you come
They're
over
gonna get
the
ready to
Autumn
heat up
Railroad?
dinner.
You can either, if you could get onto the snowmobile trail that goes up over the hill and down onto the power line, down by Dick's, up in that area, and follow that up to the corner, the four corners over on to Davis, up onto Russo gets you to the Barnard line. It is a lot of town road, but it's.
It makes more sense. Isn't Nils against it though, Dave? Isn't Nils Delaire against it? And he owns a good section of that.
I know he does, and I don't know, I haven't talked with Nils about it, but I think if we approached him, I just want to approach him because I've known Nils for a long, long time and lived up there on the hill and dealt with him and I'm not so sure that he wouldn't, to be honest with you.
I was actually thinking I need to get you chimed in with our club because we just met again on Monday.
Oh,
And maybe when we're at the club level, we could discuss, these landowners to approach, because that's what we did on Monday night is we spent a bunch of time looking at tax maps and trying to connect A to Bs through the woods.
Yeah,
And I will shoot you a message and why don't we try to work on that if that's,
yeah.
I mean, we're open to looking at any of the alternatives. And I mean, same thing. I mean, we're open to discussing the Davis Road one because we hear the concerns about Seawall Brook Road and whether it's traffic or well, the Watusi, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
It sounds like, tell me I'm wrong, please tell me I'm wrong, but it sounds like what you're saying is that people who own larger chunks of property that don't want these vehicles going in front of their house on the road have already spoken up, and that's guided this process. And perhaps will, in the end, be the reason why a certain route is chosen. In other words, if you only own a little piece of property, your voice isn't as strong as somebody who owns a large piece of property. Am I wrong?
It's just as strong.
I just-
So, but, so when you say, well, is it Mills against this, you're talking about against the ATVs coming up the road in front of his property?
that's
or
private
like
property.
on his property?
On his property.
Okay, good, so I misunderstood what you're saying.
Yeah, he was saying, because he owns
Okay.
the large chunk that the snowmobile trail's
That
on
you
now,
want-
that
want
you
to
could do to try to connect from Automera Road to,
Good,
Johnson
I'm glad I
Hill.
asked, okay.
but I mean,
True,
and talking about that, I mean, I think that, you know, there was discussion. I mean, we get it. I think that most gravel roads, these vehicles, when they're being operated accordingly, they don't really do damage to these gravel roads. I mean, you could go to Barnard Stockbridge and on any, as long as, you know, people aren't abusing it. It's no different than you can go over the Automera Road at any given time and you can see where people are sliding the corners with pickups and cars. I'm sure it's the same thing on Davis Hill. There's going to be burnouts and there's going to be spinouts. The other night we had somebody in a Ford Mustang that is an obnoxiously loud Ford Mustang, and someone immediately jumped on Facebook and was like, ATVs are racing up and down the road. Don't they realize what they're trying to do? They're trying to get this open. Why are they racing? And it wasn't even ATVs. It was this one kid we know, and if you heard his Mustang, you could hear his Mustang here from exit 3. I kid you not. It is that loud. Anyways, long story short, and we could discuss Davis Hill Road, but it does open up a lot more exposure. It's not the class 4 that, you know, in the eyes of, you know, trying to make this a get into the woodlands where we'd rather be in the backwoods versus on just Davis Road on a gravel ride. That's why we were looking at Sewell Brook Road, different than Davis Road. But I mean, we also did have discussion that if that's going to be the road that we're posting as VASA, say it does get 50 cars a day, 50 extra razors a day, ATV side by sides. Then Davis Road would be the one to support that traffic. And I'm open to that discussion. It's not like I'm trying to get there. It's just, you know, we just don't, you know.
No. That was my point, was just like, as we move forward with these discussions, other routes deserve the same amount of sort of scrutiny and discussion as what's proposed by the ATV club.
But I think the challenge is that the planning commission, when I read what they're saying, they don't want us on the roads, and what the conservation commission is saying, they don't want us in the woods, right?
That's right.
So there's got to be a balance between, they both are telling us different things, right? So I think that's something we're going to all have to talk about, but let's move on. We've got to move. Jojo, yes.
My comment might seem a little outdated as of the moments gone by, but there's been a few times in this particular meeting when several people in your meeting room were talking at once, and I'm sorry, but this doesn't work in Zoom. It means I can't hear Ian, I can't hear Sandy, I can't hear Pam, I can't hear whoever's really has the floor. So I was wondering if you can try to keep better order.
Sure. I obviously didn't see 4 people talking, but
No,
anyway. Okay, yes, absolutely, Jojo, I will. All right, so let's move on. So for the maps, just to kind of bring some closure, you're going to continue to work on them.
we'll get some signed permission slips. We'll define where these private trails are. It's one of our next items as a club, separate from this. And then we can come back around to, maybe I can color this different, Route 1, B, Route A here, or Route B here, or we'll even look at a possible Route C if we can try to connect the Automera Road, because then, yeah, that would be a potential to avoid all of the Route 14 stuff. Because again, I don't want to be on Route 14 either. And if all of a sudden we could make that connection through the woods, that's where I'd rather be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at the map, and again, I don't know all the parties involved, but there are other routes with significantly larger chunks of land, whether or not those are just timber holdings or sugar woods. I don't know.
Yeah.
That, but it seems that some alternative routes really open up the possibility for more private trail access, which I think would be the goal for this entire
Let me
thing.
get your phone number before you leave. Let's connect. Because we're planning on doing some property walks also, not this weekend being the holiday, but weekend after.
Okay. All right, so you'll work on
Yep.
that and give us A, B, or possibly C
Yep.
routes, and then we can talk from there. And let's move on to the surveys, because I know that you redid them. So I asked Victoria about getting Ian reimbursed for the Google, for
Sure.
the Survey Monkey, and she suggested Google, so Google Forms, so you were able to utilize that.
Yeah.
And so I saw the surveys, and I just had there, for me, is the one in the Vermont one, we need to relook at number 7, because you're saying that is for out of state. I think you meant to say in Vermont. Number 7.
It says how often you write out of state.
Out of state, and then you say, never, I only write out of state. I think
Oh,
you
okay,
meant
yeah,
to
it's a
say
copy
in
paste, sorry,
Vermont,
good
right?
catch.
Yeah, I think you want to say.
Number 7,
That's
Oh, it
a
was-
different survey or something, what?
yeah,
I
There's
thought it
two.
was-
that would be the Royalton
There's
one.
2 in there.
Yeah, there's 2.
Royalton and ATV, if you're a Royalton landowner resident, how often do you ride ATV out of state?
It starts on the back of the 3rd page, the Royalton
Okay,
one.
thank you.
Well, so no, what I guess I was doing was.
Yeah, I'm confused.
Well, no, so it's, yeah, both scenarios where if you are, so item 6 is the setup to that. If you are a Royalton landowner resident, how often do you ride ATV, UTV in Vermont? And then item 7, if you are a Royalton landowner resident, how often do you ride ATV, UTV out of state? Just to show that, people live here in town, but they're traveling out of state. And it would show you the frequency that they are traveling out of state to
Oh,
ride.
all right. Okay.
Unless, I mean, it was one that we had in the,
In the other,
and the other one, and to me, it just seemed like, oh, why don't we just show it? But I mean, for keeping it simplistic and focused on Royalton, I guess I was just trying to show that. I already had it typed and it was easy to just go, oh, this one, I
oh,
can
so
just,
you just.
I can just,
copy pasted
go
it.
like bink and put that one in this one.
Oh,
And,
I see.
once I had it in Google, it was easy to copy
Oh,
over.
okay, sure.
I'm concerned there's no opportunity for anyone to just say flatly, I prefer that ATVs be on private property.
Actually, so number 11 on
Yeah.
the Royalton ATV survey is number 10. Do you have concerns about ATV, UTV use in Royalton? If yes, please provide concerns under other below. So that I have to have a question, like I have to have 2 fields to be able to give an other. So I have to be able, so in Google, I have to have something so I just thought it made sense to just have a button that if someone's here not from Royalton or whatever their concern, they could, if they're not from Royalton, they shouldn't be at this point anyways, but they could just click, I'm not from Royalton. And if you are from Royalton, if you do have a concern, right there at other is where you would put your concern. And then that's where we would get everyone's concern that takes the survey.
Yeah, I guess it's just a lot different from having a button there that is click on this response. So it's much harder to do it the other way, but I'm just suggesting that, I guess my feeling is that this survey is great, but it's sort of behind the cart in that it's something that you might have done long ago to find out what the percentage of people
Set
are
the
who
alarm, yeah.
use ATVs. You said 68 roughly in town, right?
I said, we did a numeric, based on,
So anyway, about that many or so. And then if you added, let's say you added, had 50% more, everybody was so excited about the success of the thing, then you got 100 people, okay? You still, that's 100 out of 2,000, so we're talking about like 3-4%. That you're asking us, the 97%, to subsidize your fund, because you made very clear, this is just about your entertainment. It's not about the great ideas about the spin-off and the marketing potential and all that stuff, but it's all marketing. And it should have started with a marketing survey that would have told you more about your audience, but we're now at a place where we got to go back and find out about our audience. And my contention would be, we should do that carefully, and we should find a way to welcome people in to give a yay or nay on this in this survey, rather than skirting it or pretending that doesn't exist. It should be a choice saying, I believe ATVs in Royalton should be on private property only.
I think that everybody that voted at town meeting did that.
I was gonna,
Hang on.
so a couple things. This was in the Herald for the 3 different times I did vote meet with the select board. The select board did put it in the town report. The select board did publicly warn it. We did have an information meeting. And it did get voted on, where we did have 185. Granted, I know it was one and it may have been a small pool. We can get into all sorts of analytics with the vote. There still was a vote, and we had just as many interest as there wasn't. And I understand, and it's not just for my amusement or my fun. This is a motor vehicle that is recognized in the Vermont state statutes 23 as a legal motor vehicle. It's a motor vehicle that I pay registration fees for, and I have no right to use in the town that I reside. So I have a beef
That's
with
not
that.
true,
It's
though.
just as much though.
Well, it
You have
may
a right
be
to use
because
it.
Not on the
97%
public
of
highways, and why would I pay
people
the
don't.
registration fees?
Wait, one at a time. And I just want to say, though, this survey was the idea that came up that Brad said, so that we could get some townspeople input, right?
I think it's great. Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do. So we have a limited time to try to do that. So
Would-
what's the suggestion?
Would it be possible just to add one more question that said, if you are a resident of Royalton, do you support the use of ATVs on town roads?
Town roads or private? I mean, which is.
I actually
think
thought
that's
of,
a fair
The
question.
town roads is what the,
so I actually,
is what we're doing here.
I actually-
Oh, go ahead.
thought about that, and I was wondering, like, what I was gonna say is, I was gonna make it like a yes or no question. I was trying to think of how to make it, because when you say that, you're leaving it open and big, like, well, I don't want everybody all over all the roads. I mean, look at even JoJo last week, who she's been reporting on this for months. She thought we were going to be on every road in the town. So I thought about how could you write the question that, are you familiar with the current proposal that only includes area 1 and 2, and would you be in support for the current proposal? But I would be okay with a question like that, but when you say, like, are you okay with it on town roads? A lot of people that aren't familiar with the proposal would think that you are asking for all roads, because a lot of other towns actually do that.
But like I was saying about the map, the proposal, that's the proposal from the ATV. So yes, that is part of what we're discussing here, but that could completely change by the time things are said and done. So you could word it, do you support ATV use on select town roads?
Fair
Like,
enough.
just, limit it. I mean, no, it's not, I don't think it should be, do you,
Fair enough.
we should be able to clarify that we're not talking about all town roads. Select town roads, which have been approved by the committee or the select board, or, I mean, I don't know if you need to get that wordy in there, but yes, this has been put to a vote, and yes, it was one person that made the difference, but that doesn't mean that we can't ask the question again.
Fair enough. And I did think about that when I was doing this last time, and
Yeah,
so the wording would
Maybe
be,
it's to connect to private trails. I mean, the whole point isn't for them to take the whole road.
but
Well,
that's
actually-
pretty much what's happening here. I mean,
Yeah,
that's,
You're gonna find in the town of Royalton, it's gonna be pretty hard to put trails through, because there are a lot of people that are going to say no. That's, that, and that, just so to make a real lengthy trail through the town of Royalton is going to be very difficult
On private lands.
on
Yeah,
private
well,
land.
no, that, I was just
And that's,
responding
and that's
to,
why a lot of, and same thing up north. That's why there are towns where they've opened up all their dirt roads, all their class 2 roads, no, class 3 roads. And most of the ATV club rides on roads. Now that isn't anything I would enjoy doing, but it happens.
yeah, I was just responding to Gidget. Like, I think what we're realizing is that the main purpose of this ordinance is not to connect to private trails. I mean, yes, it's a part of it, but it's a pretty small part of the overall plan that we're discussing here, as far as, especially getting to other towns. I mean, those routes are primarily, in some instances, 100% town roads. There's not a single bit of private property on the map so far that is, now I realize Ian's working on it. But I do think that saying this is,
I think it's gonna be a work
Using-
in progress for a while. A work in progress for a while as they work on private property. I mean, there may be something opened up initially, but as the club keeps working,
Oh, yeah.
I would assume the club's goal is to get as much private property as possible.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but that's not what it is right now.
No, but the ordinance that the town voted on was whether we okayed as voters to create an ordinance to allow town roads to be used for
Yeah.
ATV use.
Yeah,
That is what we're trying to establish now.
yeah.
Then, as time goes by, don't think we're gonna stick to all the town roads, because it's gonna be as we can get landowner permission. But it's not gonna happen overnight by any means.
We were just talking about a question on a survey, and I
Yeah.
think that, just saying,
I just mentioned it, it doesn't need to be added at all.
oh,
It
yeah,
can Stay as is.
I'm okay with adding do you support ATV use on select town roads?
Select down ones.
Yeah.
Okay,
Jojo,
Jojo,
Thank you. Ian, I did not say what it was you just said about me saying that the ordinance sounds like it's for all town roads. And I am assuming that Pamela did not put such a saying in the minutes either.
we haven't got to the minutes.
Well, if it's in the minutes, it better come out, because I never said
It's
what
not in the
it said
minutes.
I said.
Pamela vouches that it's not in the minutes.
It is not.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right. All
I
right.
make
So
a motion
any
to approve
other,
the surveys
with the
changes
added question on?
discussed.
Mhm. All right, so we have a motion.
I'm
made.
sorry, I need to ask you this, a mechanical question.
Yep.
So with Google Forms, it wants to know if you have a Google or a Gmail address.
Do you?
I do.
Okay, because I sent you the invites to be the collaborator.
Okay, so I'm just, what I'm wondering is, apparently you can log in or you can answer it if you don't have a Gmail account. Only I wondered if somebody who doesn't use Gmail, try it out
Oh.
and see if it allows you to enter repeatedly, just fill it out. Because I
Yeah.
think that's what I've read about the Google Forms is that's a thing.
No, there's a setting.
But if you add that setting, then you have to have a Gmail account,
Ah,
right? Or Google.
maybe I guess I didn't
account.
read that, because there was something where it said, because it was like in identification of the email.
Yeah,
But then there was a separate button that was about.
You limited the number of
limited
times.
to the numbers of times.
I think that means that it requires you to have a Google account. That's what I read, but that's, that's just my very cursory research, so that could be a
Well, the
thing.
town doesn't have a Google account, so maybe see if Victoria would go in and try it.
Yep.
I
I
have.
thought it was interesting when I tried to test it. I just opened the page, the link that you had, and it had my email address right at the top.
Because your email, if you've ever signed in your Gmail with your browser, it's gonna grab it and it's gonna know that you, it's gonna
And I
know.
never signed into Geo browser, I use Max mail thing. So, but anyway, I just thought it was interesting. I've never seen anything like that where it just took my email.
Or even probably like, because if like you have an Android-based phone, it would probably automatically grab whatever your Gmail is as well.
Can we approve the survey
The
and then,
content,
the content?
Yeah.
And then if we have some questions about the technical stuff, then we'll work that out.
We'll email Victoria and I'll CC you and
Yeah.
Sandy, or do you guys want, just keep CCing the whole group, just when we email Victoria?
is that okay?
Yeah, it's actually okay.
That's all right, okay.
Yeah.
That's inclusive to everybody.
Yep.
All right, so we had a motion made and seconded to approve the survey with the addition of the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. And I know, I didn't see the minutes and I know you're probably still working on them.
Okay,
That's
so
okay.
I have the minutes for 5/11, with the
Okay.
changes suggested.
All right.
I
very-
just took some stuff out too, so, that maybe was problematic, but I have not circulated it. I can circulate it and I can circulate my draft of last week's, which are considerably shorter, because I just said there was a presentation and I put
Look at you go.
the
Lauren.
presentation, now I'm like, and then they just talked for about 2 hours. And some of them went to Crossroads, anyways.
Yes,
But I'm sorry that I didn't give them to you
It's
ahead of time.
okay.
Can we, is it possible for us to vote on email to approve minutes?
No, I don't know.
Why, what would,
So that we
Okay,
wouldn't
so
have to
it's
wait a
discussion.
week to do it. And then if you had to change that, like if I like accidentally put Sandy's name instead of Gidget's and
Mhm.
she's like, no, wait, that was me, and then I
Mhm.
change it right away, then we can get that approved and posted. So it's
That would
not-
be considered a meeting.
That's a meeting, okay. But so long as that is posted, that email is posted on the site, that'd be okay,
It
Jojo?
becomes a conversation.
I think so.
It breaks
Yeah.
that law.
Ask
Yeah.
Victoria, she knows better.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because I do think it would kind of like.
Anyone's response couldn't go to everyone, so then everyone wouldn't know
it's a
what that
quorum of
change
a
was.
meeting.
If you sent it out to the group, I would have to message you individually, Ian would have to message you, and then we wouldn't know what was going on. So I think it's better to just have it at the meeting, send them
I think
out,
it's okay. We could just wait to get them for
Okay.
the next meeting.
but send them out before the meeting.
Yeah,
So I have
yes.
time to read it.
Okay. All right, so we'll approve the next meeting. We'll do all three. It's okay. We'll get back into compliance. Okay. And then I think just quickly too, I had asked Gidget if she'd be okay to be, because you're trying to take the minutes, Pamela, that we have someone else to be like our scribe for the ordinance. And Gidget's open to doing that. So I wondered if it was okay as the committee, if we could go ahead and have her create the template and start that process and everything. And then we could it could be in tandem with us talking and writing.
I
Is
have
that
the Word
okay with
document. I
everybody?
Probably like what you're working on too.
I'll send you my Word
Okay,
document. and-
so that
or
would be
I'll send
good.
that to the group.
Yep.
Yeah, and so if you could
Right,
send
'cause you
that
have some
out,
things in there.
and then Gidget could be the scribe of trying to write the ordinance while you're trying to write the
Sounds great.
minutes. Is that
Love it.
okay?
Mhm.
All right, very good.
Definitely. Hey, one last thing very
Yes.
quickly. Did anybody see that? There was I guess on May 1st, there's something in Vermont Digger about Newtown or Newport rather, creating a new amendment that will allow more road access to trailheads, but only for Newport residents.
Was that from 2020 or 2021?
I thought that was,
Mhm.
was I looking at
21,
something
I
from
think.
20?
Yes, so that I did, actually, I might have even.
I think it is in that ordinance, the amended one.
You were right, it was last year.
Yeah, so that's what, when they reported that, they were reporting this change.
But that, and is that, so that is a thing, like they can actually restrict the roads just for residents? I thought
Yep.
that was,
Well, they put it in there, and I mean, they probably took some sort of onus on, I mean, the town can do whatever they want with an ordinance. And then, we've kind of discussed this before, and then we could say like, okay, we're only sharing this one corridor with Vasa, as long as everyone understands that the public insurance liability and policy only goes with whatever
Right.
we show as the VASA, what goes on the VASA map is what gets covered by either insurance or maintenance money. So if we did an ordinance for those things, it's just that those wouldn't necessarily be under the VASA. We'd have to double check, but
Yeah.
as we understand it, those wouldn't necessarily be under the
No,
VASA
they wouldn't. right?
liability
That wouldn't
or
make sense.
maintenance.
But, so, okay, so I guess if it's not a state road, then state law allows the select board or, you know, local government to open up local roads just to residents if it wants to. Interesting, okay. Because that was surprising to me. I didn't think that was possible, but
But that would not allow VASA.
correct, right. I
Right.
just wanted to understand it. Right.
And the VASA people they're getting caught up. I mean, obviously, you know, what you would do is have certain signage that says, you know, no ATVs or local, you know, just like how we have local traffic only, like when certain bridges or culverts or whatever are
Right.
getting done. Like you could have a sign that says, you know, local traffic only, no, you know, no through connection for, you know, VASA corridor. You could, and then sign it as like, hey, this is, you know, the gold corridor. Like when we get over to New Hampshire, they have like certain symbols you look for, like, oh, if I know I'm doing Ride the Wilds, then they have a certain sign that if you're running the main trail to get from one town to the next town, you know, you're riding the Ride the Wilds, you're looking for that Ride the Wild sign, and you know, you're supposed to follow that at every intersection.
Got it. All right, thank you for clarifying.
So if it's okay for our next meeting, because I want us to try to get some, you know, the planning commission was wanting to know the roads best, because they're having their meeting on like the 6th or something, I think it is, so that they can address those areas. So I think for next meeting, I'd like us just to focus on the map and the roads and maybe the 1 or 2 or 3 alternates that you guys are thinking about. Would that be okay that we did that, and then the minutes? So, because I think we need to get that as close as we can, so we have something to give the planning commission. Okay, very good. All right, anything else from anybody? Thank you all for participating and working together.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right.
Appreciate it.
Nice.
Good night.
Everybody.
Oh, yeah, I moved to.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Motion adjourned.
Brad didn't get
Oh,
to.
what's your phone number?
Motion to adjourn.
Just stand up as Dave Ainsworth used to always say. All those in favor?
Did your wife come today?
802-296.
Did you stop
recording?
recording?
1503.
I believe you did.
1503.
It was hotter than hell.
That's my cell phone. That's